You used to be untouchable, the kind of man fire couldn't burn, and no woman could tame. You didn't chase trends. You didn't beg for approval. You shaped the world around you with nothing but the force of your own will. You didn't look at life, or at women, with longing or fear. You looked with that steady, cold confidence that came from knowing. You belonged to no one. You were the storm that passed through quiet towns, the whispered danger, the myth that turned out to be real. You didn't just walk into rooms, you shifted them. Not out of arrogance, but because you knew. You bowed to no one, no title above your mind, no law above your will, no God above your ego. And when you were silent, that silence spoke volumes. When you stood still, you were unmovable. Your presence had weight. But now, look at you. You smile when she walks in, not because you're happy, but because you're afraid. You laugh when you're uncomfortable. You don't speak your mind. You measure every syllable like a man tiptoeing through a minefield. You live in your own home like a guest. You obey, not out of love, but out of survival. You're not the king of your castle anymore. You're a servant, careful, calculated, muted. You've traded truth for tolerance, fire for comfort, instinct for approval, and the worst part? You call it love. What the hell happened to you? This isn't a roast, it's recognition, because Max Stirner warned you long before your first heartbreak that the real danger wasn't some dictator or preacher. It was the ideas in your own mind, ideas you turned into gods. Stirner once wrote, "The human being is to me only something that exists like myself, but not a higher power." But you made her a higher power. You turned her approval into your Bible, her feelings into commandments, her comfort into your gospel. And in doing so, you betrayed the most sacred truth of all. Your ego is the only thing you truly own. You were supposed to be that man, the man who lived for himself, not in some shallow, selfish way, but with deep, unapologetic awareness that you were not born to serve anyone, not an ideal, not a tradition, not a woman. And yet, you've handed over your energy, your focus, your dreams, even your sense of self, just to keep her from being upset. And she doesn't even respect you for it, because deep down, she misses the man she couldn't control, the one who wouldn't fold, the one who made her feel like she had to earn his attention. Stirner had a name for the things that haunt us, spooks, ghosts of the mind. You're not haunted by her. You're haunted by the idea of her, the idea that a good man always pleases, that love is proved by sacrifice, that maturity means surrender. So you gave more, hoping you surrendered because you were afraid of being alone, afraid of being called toxic, afraid of being the bad guy. So you handed over your fire for the illusion of harmony. And that is the most cowardly thing a man can do, to betray himself and call it love. This isn't a hit piece on women. Stirner didn't hate women. He just refused to worship them. That's the point. A free man doesn't hate, and he doesn't idolize. He chooses. He remains himself. In every room, in every relationship, in every moment, he doesn't trade his soul for sex or silence. He doesn't beg for peace. He brings peace by being whole.
"I am the owner of my might," Stirner wrote, "and I am so when I know myself as unique."
Do you even know yourself anymore? Do you remember the taste of your own will? The rhythm of your thoughts before they were edited by her expectations? She didn't steal your power. You gave it. Bit by bit, smile by smile, apology by apology. Now look at you, sitting quietly on the couch watching her scroll, while you wonder why you feel like a ghost in your own home. You used to be the man women feared losing. Now you're just the man she uses, because you're convenient. And the tragedy, she didn't leave, Because the real man, he left long ago. He disappeared the moment you paused your ambitions to manage her insecurities. He died when you started apologizing for your opinions. He faded when you chose peace over truth. You told yourself it was maturity, growth, love. But Stirner would call it what it is, a sacrifice to a ghost, a fiction, a surrender to a thing that doesn't exist. She didn't break you, you broke yourself. You thought bending would bring love. But no woman admires a man who bends until he disappears. You hoped she'd reward your patience and loyalty. Instead, she saw it for what it was, weakness. You became the good guy, the nice guy, the agreeable, forgettable, safe man. But you were never dangerous again, never thrilling, never hers in that primal, magnetic way. All things are nothing to me, Stirner said, not because he didn't care, but because he understood. Nothing has power over you unless you give it power. But you gave her that power. You let her feelings dictate your identity. You allowed her emotions to rewrite your beliefs. Now when you disagree, it's not a conversation. It's a prelude to an apology. You used to live. Now you manage. You walk on eggshells. You wait for permission to speak. What happened to you? You weren't born for this. Stirner didn't write for slaves. He wrote for the awakened. Those brave enough to break invisible chains and walk back into the world carrying nothing but their own fire. She doesn't. You smile when you're exhausted. You say sorry just for existing in a way she didn't expect. You've become a hostage to her emotional weather. And here's the cruel part. She doesn't even want that power. She resents it. She resents you because she didn't fall in love with a man who seeks permission. She fell for the man who didn't need it, the man who was already whole, the man who was magnetic because he stood on his own 2 feet and didn't flinch when she tested him. She admired your distance, your self-possession, the way you didn't ask for approval, you evoked it. She loved the feeling of earning your attention, but then you dropped the sword, and with it, you dropped her interest. You became safe, predictable, easy, and she didn't feel secure. She felt disgusted. See, women don't want to lead, not really. They want to feel the gravity of a man who can, a man who doesn't ask how to lead, but simply leads. She doesn't want to tell you what a man is. She wants to feel it in your silence, your presence, your edge. Every time you give up that edge, every time you agree just to avoid a fight, every time you let her dictate your life, you become invisible, another blur in the sea of men trying too hard to be liked. But Stirner's egoist. He wasn't cruel. He was just real, brutally, unapologetically real. He didn't give up his essence for peace. He didn't neuter his instincts to be liked. He simply was. Man, your head is haunted, he wrote. You have wheels in your head, and you still do. You're haunted by the idea that to be loved, you must abandon yourself. That to keep her happy, you must become less of you. But here's the truth. No woman truly loves the man who vanishes to keep her comfortable. She might use him. She might rely on him. But she doesn't desire him. You were the man she couldn't control. Because you didn't need her, you chose her. That was the power. Now you're begging silently, with chores, with quiet resentment, with self-erasure disguised as compromise. That's not love, that's negotiation, a deal. And you're getting the worst end of it. You think being agreeable is love. You think saying yes to everything is leadership. You think letting her decide how you both live is the key to harmony. Stirner would laugh in your face and then hand you a mirror. You have no self, he'd say. You're possessed, not by a demon, but by a spook in lipstick and perfume. You call it strength, this ability to endure without complaint. But strength isn't silent compliance. It's the ability to say no and mean it, to let her cry and not crumble, to let her leave and not beg. That's not coldness, that's power. You used to own a room just by walking in, now and then blamed her for walking over it. Stirner's entire philosophy was a wrecking ball for lies, and the biggest lie, that a good man sacrifices himself for his woman. No, a good man lives for himself, and if she's strong enough, she walks beside him. Stirner never said, hate others. He said, own yourself. I am not nothing in the sense of emptiness, but I am the creative nothing. That is, I am not defined by anyone. I define myself. But you gave her the pen. You let her rewrite you. And now you're just a love poem full of edits, lines cut out, verses softened, all to make her happy. That's why she doesn't read you anymore. There's nothing dangerous left in your pages. Do you even know what you want anymore? Or have you trained yourself so well to guess her moods that you've forgotten your own? Do you eat what she eats, wear what she likes, talk like she prefers, and call that unity? That's not a relationship, that's spiritual suicide. And you wonder why you feel anxious, why her eyes glaze over when you speak, why she flirts with men who don't look or act like you. It's not your looks, it's not your age, it's not your paycheck. It's that you've lost the edge, the tension, the unknown, the part of you that made her nervous in the best way. You became the planner, the helper, the reliable one. And in doing so, you stopped being a man. You became her rock. But a rock doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't try to be liked, it just is. That's what Stirner meant by ego. Not arrogance, but the raw, undiluted self. The man who exists for his own sake, who doesn't shrink for affection, who doesn't flinch at loneliness. She doesn't want your help, she wants your spine. She doesn't want a yes man, she wants a man whose no shakes the room, whose silence is louder than her chaos, whose presence cannot be bought, coaxed, or guilted. You were that once, and you can be again, but not until you kill the ghost. The ghost of the man who's always agreeable, the man who thinks being chosen means being owned, the man who gave up power and got nothing back but peace that doesn't even feel peaceful. You sit there, wondering why you feel hollow, why she rolls her eyes, why touch feels like duty, why every conversation feels like negotiation. It's because you forgot how to offend, not with cruelty, but with truth. Stirner didn't whisper his message. He shouted it through every man bold enough to wake up. I'm not here to please anyone. I'm here to be. And in a world that tells you to soften, to serve, to seek permission, that is rebellion. You were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to inspire it, not with performance, but with presence. You want her back, not just her body, her respect, her fascination, her fire. You want that look in her eyes again, the one she had when you didn't ask. Stop trying to be the good man the world applauds and women forget. Burn the script, kill the ghost. Return to the altar of yourself and light a fire there. Stirner didn't beg society for space, he took it. He didn't plead with women to understand him. He refused to be shaped by anyone else's idea of a man. He said, I am my own, only when I am master of myself. And that's the key. You don't need permission to exist as you are. You don't need applause to be powerful. You don't need her to stay to be whole. The truth is brutal but freeing. She never truly controlled you. You surrendered. You allowed it. You thought if you just softened enough, smiled enough, agreed enough, she'd finally stop testing you. But the tests weren't designed to find weakness. They were designed to find strength. She wanted to lose to you, not in battle, but in gravity. She wanted to feel your presence so strong, your will so steady, that her chaos couldn't move you. But you flinched, you bent, you adjusted, and she lost what made her feel alive with you. You were once the man who walked through life on your terms, who woke up and moved like a sovereign, who didn't check in before making decisions. You didn't compromise your nature. You didn't dilute your fire. That wasn't irresponsibility. That was sovereignty. And now, that sovereignty has become your cage, A cage built from comfort, fear, and a deep desire to keep the peace. But peace at the cost of your essence is not peace, it's paralysis. You've seen it, you've felt it. The way she lights up around a man who hasn't lost himself. The way her tone changes. The way her body language shifts when another man with presence walks past. And you hate that man, not because he's wrong, but because he reminds you of the man you were meant to be. You had one job, stay you, not a version, not a filtered, socially acceptable, well-behaved draft, but the full, raw, unedited force of who you are. That's what drew her in. That's what made her feel. That's what made her lean in closer, not because she understood you, but because she couldn't define you. She may have asked for softness. She may have begged for understanding. But the moment you became what she said she wanted, she stopped feeling what she never knew she needed. And here's the most important truth I'll give you. You're not too late. The chains are invisible, but they're not invincible. The ghost that wears your name, your smile, your "yes, dear" voice, it can be destroyed, but not by her, only by you. The second you stop asking, "What does she need?" and start asking, "Who the hell am I?" that's the moment of return, not a return to arrogance, not to cruelty, but to truth, your truth, Stirner's truth, that you are the center of your world, not in a selfish way, but in the only sane way. When that truth roots, you touch not to get something in return, but because you want to. You stop explaining, you stop apologizing, you stop shrinking, and she feels it, that shift, that weight, that presence. The man who once made her nervous is back, not because he yells, not because he controls, but because he doesn't flinch. He states instead of begs. He walks instead of tiptoes. He leads instead of polling for approval. And suddenly, she remembers why she loved you in the first place. Not because you were easy, not because you were safe, but because you were sovereign. That's the man women can't control. Not because he dominates, but because he's out of reach. She doesn't want your affection if it costs your fire. She doesn't want your presence if it means you abandon yourself to give it. She wants to be near that fire, even if it burns her a little. You want the final truth? Here it is. The world doesn't punish weak men with violence. It punishes them with invisibility, with the slow decay of their soul, with the quiet pain of watching their woman light up for other men while she goes numb to their touch. Women don't submit to men who worship them. They submit, body, soul, attention, to the man who bows to nothing but his own fire. You were that man, and you will be again, not when she allows it, not when she asks, but when you decide. When you rise, not to dominate, not to convince, but simply to stand as the master of yourself. You'll realize something both liberating and haunting. She was never the one in control. You were. You just forgot. But now you remember. So rise, like, share, subscribe, support the movement. Links in the description. We're not here to become someone's dream. We're here to wake up and become our own.